Until the Rosetta Stone was discovered and promptly acquired by Napoleon's campaign in Egypt, no one in the modern age had a clue about how Egyptian writing worked. The most popular idea was that they were purely ideographic, with each drawing representing a concept.
Scientists just scanned the Rosetta Stone with a next-generation X-ray system, and what they found has left experts struggling to explain it. At 2:14 in the morning in a basement lab at University College London, Dr. Amara Okafor watches hidden inscriptions render across her screen. Inscriptions carved beneath the visible text that no human eye has seen in over 2,000 years. Her coffee has gone cold. Her hands haven't moved from the keyboard in 6 minutes, because the scan results flooding her monitor aren't confirming what every textbook says about this artifact. They're tearing it apart. The 3 translations on the Rosetta Stone don't say the same thing. There's a secret code embedded in the hieroglyphs no scholar ever detected. There are ghost carvings from 1,000 years older scraped away and hidden underneath in the missing top section. The AI predicts it contained a curse. She picks up the phone. "You need to come in right now. The stone that unlocked Egypt." To understand what Okafor found, you need the backstory, and it's faster than you think. 1799. Napoleon soldiers are rebuilding a crumbling Ottoman fort near the Egyptian port town of Rosetta. A shovel hits something massive beneath the rubble. They drag out a slab of dark granatorite over 1,600 pounds, heavier than a full-grown grizzly bear caked in centuries of compacted earth. Its surface is covered edge to edge with 3 bands of text. Hieroglyphs at the top carved with surgical precision, Demotic script in the middle, ancient Greek at the bottom. Here's why that mattered. Nobody had read hieroglyphs for over 1,000 years. After the Romans crushed Egypt's old religions, the knowledge just vanished. Generations stared at the walls of Karnak and Luxor, covered in intricate carvings, and had zero idea what any of it meant. Ancient Egypt had a voice, but the entire world had gone deaf to it. But scholars could still read Greek, and the Greek section said something extraordinary. It was a royal decree, and the text explicitly stated the same message had been written in all 3 scripts. A decoder ring for a language locked for a millennium. And get this, it took decades. But in 1822, a French scholar named Jean-François Champollion proved that hieroglyphs weren't just pictures. They were sounds and meanings layered together in a system far more complex than anyone imagined. The world celebrated. Ancient Egypt could speak again. The Rosetta Stone became the foundation of an entire field of study. Case closed. Mystery solved. That's been the official story for 200 years. But what if the stone that unlocked ancient Egypt was designed from the very beginning to mislead anyone who read it? The X-ray that broke the story. The Rosetta Stone sat behind glass in the British Museum for generations. Everyone assumed there was nothing left to find. Then Dr. Okafor got access to something no previous researcher had ever aimed at this artifact, a next-generation X-ray scanning system capable of imaging the stone surface down to the micron level. We're talking millionths of a meter, chisel marks invisible to the naked eye, depth variations between individual carved strokes, and faint traces of something buried underneath the visible text. The scans took weeks. The stone had to be imaged from every angle with different X-ray intensities calibrated to penetrate different depths. The resulting data set was enormous terabytes of 3-dimensional surface data that would take a human team years to process. Here's the catch. Okafor's team didn't just scan the stone, they fed every byte of that data into a neural network trained on every known Egyptian text ever discovered. Thousands of temple inscriptions, papyrus scrolls, tomb warnings, errare prayers. The AI could cross-reference the entire surviving library of ancient Egypt in seconds. It had no preconceived assumptions, no academic career protect. It wasn't taught what the Rosetta Stone was supposed to say. It just looked for patterns. 72 hours later, Okafor is standing in that basement lab watching the results compile. Her research assistant leans over her shoulder, reads the first summary output, and steps back from the screen without saying a word. The AI had flagged thousands of micro inconsistencies across the 3 texts. Some small words changed between scripts. Phrases added in one language but absent in another. Entire concepts that were fundamentally different depending on which section you read. The 3 translations on the Rosetta Stone, the ones the world has trusted for over 200 years, do not say the same thing, and the differences aren't random. They're systematic, strategic. This wasn't scribal error. This was a calculated act of deception carved into stone. Now, take a second and hit subscribe, because what's coming next isn't just about one artifact. It's about whether the entire foundation of Egyptology has been built on a lie. And trust me, you don't want to miss what they found hiding inside the hieroglyphs. 3 audiences, 3 lies, 1 stone. Now, pay attention to this. To understand why the texts were deliberately different, you need to understand the political nightmare Egypt was living through in 196 BC. Ptolemy V was a teenager, inherited the throne at 5 years old after his parents were murdered. By the time this decree was carved, the country was tearing itself apart. Civil war, foreign powers circling like vultures. The kingdom was bleeding out. The priests who wrote this decree weren't honoring a king. They were performing emergency surgery on a dying empire. And the AI showed exactly how they did it, by telling 3 different lies to 3 different audiences on the same stone. Dr. Khalil Mansour, a senior Egyptologist at Cairo University, is one of the first outside scholars to review the AI findings. He lays the print out side by side on his desk, 1 column for each script, differences highlighted in red. His hands are trembling. He pushes back from the desk, stares at the ceiling for a long moment, then picks up the phone. "This is the most sophisticated piece of ancient propaganda I've ever seen," he tells a colleague. And we missed it for 2 centuries. Here's how the spin worked. The Greek text at the bottom was written for the ruling class, and this version reads like a corporate annual report. Tax reductions, prisoner releases, military funding, a rational document designed to make Greek-speaking officials see their teenage pharaoh as a stable leader. The demonic text in the middle was for the common people. Similar content, but the AI detected a dramatic tonal shift. Less policy, more reassurance. A message built to be read aloud in marketplaces. Keep the population calm, convince them the king is on their side. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. The hieroglyphs at the top told a completely different story. This was the sacred language read only by high priests and the educated elite. And in this version, the text abandons politics entirely. Where the Greek calls Ptolemy a benefactor, the hieroglyphic text calls him the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, he who makes the 2 lands flourish, packed with divine associations, complex religious terminology, sacred metaphors with 0 parallel in the other 2 scripts. It doesn't just honor the king, it deifies him. It ritually transforms a frightened teenager into a living god. 3 audiences, 3 truths, 1 stone. And for 2,000 years, everyone assumed they were reading the same message. They weren't even close. But the political manipulation, that wasn't even the real secret. The real secret was hiding underneath it, and what it contained is something no one was prepared for: the spell hidden in plain sight. This is the part that changes everything. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a computational linguist at Kyoto University specializing in ancient symbol systems, was brought in to analyze a specific anomaly the AI had flagged in the hieroglyphic section. She runs the verification 3 times, then a 4th. She pulls off her glasses, sets them on the desk, and sits perfectly still for a long time because what she's looking at shouldn't exist. The AI had detected that tiny variations in how individual hieroglyphs were carved. The angle of a bird's beak, whether wings were spread or folded, the depth of specific strokes, even the curvature of a serpent's body weren't random artistic choices. They were a code, a consistent repeating code running across the entire hieroglyphic section. And get this, the AI cross-referenced bird symbols on the Rosetta Stone with thousands of identical symbols from temples of the same period. A bird with a slightly open beak might read as sun in the public text, but the open beak itself was a separate coded signal meaning imparting breath or giving life. These micro-variations formed a second layer of meaning, completely invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. It gets worse. The AI analyzed the depth data from the X-ray scans and found that symbols representing divine concepts were carved fractions of a millimeter deeper than the political text surrounding them. A subtle shadow effect, a visual emphasis completely undetectable without advanced imaging. A message hidden in light and shadow, readable only by a trained priest who understood the code. Tanaka turns to her colleagues. Her voice is flat, clinical, the way someone sounds when they're trying very hard to stay calm. "We're not looking at a decree," she says. "We're looking at a ritual object." She was right. The AI cross-referenced the hidden patterns, not with political documents, but with religious texts. The Book of the Dead, temple ritual guides, magical papyr. It found a match. The hidden layer wasn't a message. knowledge. It was a spell. Now, here's why that mattered more than anything else on that stone. Ma'at to the Egyptian priesthood wasn't some abstract philosophy you debated over dinner. It was the operating system of the universe, divine order, cosmic justice. Think of it like gravity, except it also governed whether the sun came up, whether the dead could reach the afterlife. If Ma'at collapsed, everything collapsed. Not metaphorically, literally. The world ends, and its opposite is chaos, violence, deception was loose in the world. Egypt was in civil war. To the priests, this wasn't politics. This was a cosmic emergency. The Rosetta Stone was their weapon against it. The public decree about Tommy V was just the cover story, the material shell, for a massive state-sponsored act of ritual magic. By praising the king as the son of Ra, they ritually re-established him as the guardian of Ma'at. By carving in 3 languages, they symbolically unified the kingdom. And by embedding this secret spell, they cast a net of divine power over the land. A spell to bind the chaos, a spell to end the war, hidden in plain sight for over 2,000 years. But the spell wasn't the deepest layer. The X-rays found something even older buried beneath it. Ghost carvings and the oldest secret. Here's the deal. Everything I just told you, that's not the most disturbing discovery. Dr. Marcus Ventris, a material scientist at the University of Oxford, specializing in archaeological imaging, is analyzing the subsurface scan data late on a Thursday evening. When his cursor stops moving, he enlarges a section of the 3-dimensional model, enlarges it again. Then he closes his laptop, walks to the window of his office, and stands there for a full 5 minutes before he calls anyone. Beneath the visible hieroglyphs, the X-ray scans had detected faint traces of earlier carvings, ghost inscriptions, remnants of an older text that had been deliberately scraped away before Ptolemy's priests carved their decree over the top. The stone had been reused. Someone had taken a slab that already carried an inscription, potentially a millennium older, erased it, and carved the current text in its place. Like lifting a painting off a wall and finding a different painting underneath. Except this one might be 1,000 years older. The technical term is palimpsest, a document wiped clean and written over. The AI's analysis of the tool marks confirmed it. The chisel patterns in the hieroglyphic section are inconsistent with a single carving event. 2 distinct tool signatures, 2 different hands, 2 different eras. The stone is a crime scene, and the X-rays just found the forensic evidence. Now, pay attention to this. The linguistic analysis of the hidden magical layer supports the same conclusion. The grammar and vocabulary used in the secret spell weren't just slightly old-fashioned. They were from the Old Kingdom, over 1,000 years before the stone's official date. Tanaka compared it to finding a paragraph of medieval English hidden inside a modern legal contract. The language doesn't belong to the era. It belongs to a much older world. So what was the original text? A lost spell so powerful the priest wanted to absorb its authority? A record of a forgotten pharaoh? Nobody knows. The ghost carvings are too faint for even the AI to fully reconstruct, but they're there underneath the most studied artifact on the planet. 2,000 years of scholarship, and nobody ever thought to ask what was there before. And that's still not the worst part, because the section of the stone that might have explained everything is the one section that's missing. The curse that was meant to last forever. The Rosetta Stone is broken. What sits in the British Museum is just a fragment of a much larger stele, probably over 6 feet tall. The entire top section, the part that held the most sacred hieroglyphic text, is gone, shattered at some unknown point in history. For 2 centuries, scholars assumed the missing portion contained more of the same. More praise for tally, more bureaucratic filler. Nobody thought much about it, but the AI thought about it. Using predictive modeling fed by thousands of temple inscriptions, aerary texts, and ritual boundary markers, it reconstructed what the missing section most likely contained. When the prediction renders on screen in Okafor's lab, the room goes dead silent. Nobody moves. It wasn't praise, it was a curse. The AI found that the structural pattern of the surviving text doesn't match other political decrees from the period. It matches ritual protection spells and sacred ward stones, objects designed to guard a text or location from interference. The prediction is that the missing top section contained an elaborate ritual warning calling on the gods to protect the decree and deliver terrible consequences to anyone who would move the stone, damage it, or misinterpret its sacred meaning. And get this, Egyptian curse formulas from this period don't deal in vague threats. They describe the devouring of the offender's soul, eternal exclusion from the afterlife, the most terrifying punishments the ancient world could imagine. The priests didn't just hide a spell inside a political decree, they booby trapped it. They built a magical defense system directly into the stone to ensure their cosmic spell to restore Mahat would remain active and undisturbed for eternity. Anyone who moved it, anyone who broke it, anyone who failed to read it correctly, the gods themselves would come for them. That was the design. And for 200 years, that stone has been sitting in a glass case in London. Broken, moved across continents, stripped of context, handled by people who had no idea what they were touching. Its curse section shattered and lost, its hidden spell unread, its ghost carvings scraped into silence. The priests built this thing to last forever, and the modern world treated it like a museum curiosity. Every single assumption we made about it was wrong. What this means and what comes next. The fallout has been immediate. Egyptian officials already engaged in a decades-long campaign for the stone's return have seized on the findings. Their argument has sharpened from you took our heritage to something far more damaging. You held it for 2 centuries and didn't even understand what it was. Inside academia, the response has been explosive. Younger scholars are calling for a complete reassessment of foundational translations. Senior Egyptologists are pushing back hard, arguing that AI can detect statistical correlations but cannot understand sacred context. Mansour, when asked whether the findings threaten the field, doesn't hesitate. They don't threaten it, they transform it. Ventris puts it differently. We've been reading the cover of a book for 200 years and calling it the whole story. But here's the part that should keep every ancient historian awake tonight. If the AI's methodology holds up under peer review, it means every major decoded ancient text is now a candidate for reanalysis. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Mayan codices, Sumerian king lists, all of them could contain hidden layers and deliberate distortions that human scholars never had the tools to detect. Every translation we've trusted, every timeline we've built, all of it is now an open question. And this is the part that makes the academic establishment truly uncomfortable. If the Rosetta Stone, the single most foundational artifact in the history of translation, turns out to be a multi-layered act of deliberate deception, then what does that say about every other text we've decoded using the principles it established? Champollion's breakthrough didn't just unlock one stone, it became the method by which thousands of other inscriptions were translated. If the foundation is flawed, the entire structure built on top of it starts to wobble, and nobody in the field wants to be the first to say that out loud. The Rosetta Stone was supposed to be the key that opened ancient Egypt, but the X-ray scans suggest it was never a key at all. It was a lock, a spell, a weapon, a piece of sacred technology designed to hold the universe together during a time of chaos and to punish anyone who interfered with it. For 2,000 years, it worked. Nobody saw through it. Nobody questioned it. Nobody looked beneath the surface. The most analyzed artifact in human history kept its secrets from every scholar who ever studied it. And now that we've finally cracked the surface open, the real question isn't what the priests were hiding, it's what else is still buried in the text we think we've already read. If you're not subscribed, fix that right now, because this is just the beginning. We're covering every new AI discovery in ancient history as it breaks, and the next one is already in production. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment. Do you think the priests succeeded, or did breaking the stone break the spell? We'll see you in the next one.